If you want to build a massive chest, you have to stop bench pressing right now.
Welcome to Heinz Senior's Coaching App. Get access to the P3AK High Intensity Training ebook and its exclusive video tutorials. Commit with Heinz's coaching right now and be provided with a year of meal plans, training programs, and more. www.p3akday.com. There is no room for the littles.
Dave Palumbo here with another edition of RXMuscle's History of Bodybuilding. Today I'm joined by my friend Karl Coyne, who has written a trilogy of books known as Vince's Locker. And these books are about the life of Vince Gironda, who was one of the first gurus in bodybuilding. He worked with celebrities. He worked with top-level bodybuilders. He had a gym, Vince's gym, for many, many years. And Karl's going to give us a little bit of background on Vince and why he got involved and what the books are all about, because they're very interesting books. Welcome to the show, Karl.
Thanks, Dave. It's a pleasure to be on the show. And so let's get right into it.
Why Vince Gironda?
Basically, it's the legacy behind Vince. I mean, in this day and age, really, no one really can compare to what he did. I mean, he trained so many of Hollywood stars, many of the bodybuilding champions. I mean, the first Mr. Olympia, Larry Scott, was under his wing.
Did he train Clint Eastwood?
Yes, he did. Actually, there's this, Clint Eastwood actually trained at Vince's gym for a while before he actually became famous, because in the beginning, actually, Clint Eastwood was somewhat poor. He worked in a furniture factory,
right, and
he used to actually train at Vince's gym until Vince and Clint had a little bit of a dispute.
Oh, really? I didn't even know that. What happened?
Basically, they had some differences, and basically what happened was Clint Eastwood walked out, left, and this was before he actually got famous. So he didn't speak with Vince for years, and eventually he came back. And when he came back, he was already famous. So, but Vince was somewhat a little bit stubborn with Clint, because Vince has had many conflicts with many people, and they usually make amends, but in this case, I think I don't know what went down, but Vince didn't want to actually budge, and Clint was trying to actually make peace with him. And the last words from what I was told was that Clint said, well, he was pressing 100-pound dumbbells. So it was kind of like Clint was trying to make a joke out of it. So, but there were so many stars.
Did Vince make a lot of money? Was he like successful in his business, or was he just like one of these guys that like, hey, this is the way I'm doing it. You don't do it my way, get out of here.
Exactly. You just hit it right on the nose. He wasn't in it for the money whatsoever. And his gym ran for almost 50 years.
Wow.
And it was just basically, he had a passion for bodybuilding,
right,
and he just wanted people to basically reach their potential. When you went into the gym, it was no nonsense.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't care who was in the gym. He didn't care if you were famous, some Hollywood actor. He even threw out Sylvester Stallone.
Oh, he did? I didn't know that. What was the reason for that?
Well, he didn't like when other people, it's kind of crazy, but he didn't like when other people trained people, and Sylvester Stallone supposedly was training somebody. So
who when he was a star, he was training someone?
I think this was before. It was like in the beginning stages. So there's actually even a video where he actually outright says he threw out Sly.
Oh,
so
my God.
He calls him.
What a bad business decision that was, right?
Yeah, that was, and maybe that's one of the reasons. Actually, it's funny, I've reached out to many stars, and many people were part of my books, and probably very few have not wanted to be part of my books. And I think Sylvester Stallone was only one of two people who said no.
Oh, really?
So maybe
wow.
I think that could be the reason why.
Well, yeah, he got thrown out of the gym by Vince.
Yeah,
That'll do it.
Yeah. So
These stars have big egos, so I don't think they want to be thrown out. He was probably training John Travolta for Staying Alive or something like that, Probably throw
it's
both
quite
out.
possible. Yeah, so that's one of many stories. So Sylvester Carl Weathers was under his wing as well.
Oh, right.
But no dramatic stories with they
Right.
worked together. Vince trained him, and basically he got great results. If you remember him in the Rocky movies, Apollo 3.
Was that, you remember in Rocky 3 when Carl Weathers, Apollo Creed, takes Rocky back to that gym in California, where it's like a real dirty, dingy, dungeon-y gym? Did you think he got that? You think Stallone got that idea from Vince's gym?
Oh, without a doubt, because Vince's gym was like that. It was dark, dingy. I mean, there was no music. I mean, it was just like a dungeon.
Right.
I mean, some people have called it the dungeon.
That's
so,
funny.
I mean, during the summer, Vince he preferred it. People suggested to him to get some lights, try to keep up with Gold's gym. Yeah. He's like, no, I want it dark, and it's got to be like this. He wanted basically everybody to rough it out. I mean, sometimes there were guys like Don Holworth who would train in the summertime there, and it was so hot, and there was like a back door that there would be a slight breeze, and sometimes he would just close the door in the middle of summer.
Oh, really? Just like to make these guys suffer more?
Exactly. It was like no pain, no gain.
Yeah, I guess so. Now, what was the most, during your research, you've done 3 books now. I have all the books on my bookshelf. They're very interesting. And what you did basically was collect a lot of Vince memorabilia, like little notes that he wrote and workouts he wrote on piece of paper. And that's what these books are all. It's like you basically have collected like all the Vince Gironda like memorabilia almost and put them into a book. I mean, I have to imagine that his family loves these books, right? I mean, I would love it if someone did that for my dad,
Well, I personally, I just felt if I'm going to do it, I want to do it to the best of my ability. And I just wanted his legacy to be remembered. And I felt like if I didn't take care of this, if I didn't do this, all that history would be lost. And like I said, there's so many stars and famous bodybuilders that really looked up to Vince. I mean, the famous, there's so many people that just had good things to say. Of course, there's a handful that had some things to say about
Vince. Was kind of like, everyone knows me as the ketogenic diet guy, but Vince was a big ketogenic diet guy too. They didn't really know that much about the different sources of fats, but they were like high protein, moderate fats, but they used like heavy creams and like, red meats and stuff like that. Yes. And he was very like low on carbs when he would diet guys down. I know that.
You hit it right on the nose. I mean, that's exactly. He was basically doing pretty much the ketogenic before it actually was on the market as a ketogenic diet. I mean, he definitely knew his stuff with nutrition. And what I liked about him was that he wanted everybody to learn the muscle parts. Like if you train, it is an advantage if you know the different muscles, how they function, how they work, which muscles are connected. Right. And he was big on that. He just wanted everybody to be educated to the maximum.
I tell people when I run a personal training certification course online. I've been doing it for 25 years. It's called Smart Personal Training. And I'm not big into memorizing a lot of facts. But I always tell everyone you have to know the names of the muscles because you got to be able to talk shop. If you go to the gym and you're training someone, you have to know what the name of the individual muscle that you're training is and how it works. If you don't, you're not a trainer. And so. That's one of the things that I really emphasize, that people sit down and just look at the anatomy chart and memorize the main muscle groups, the vastus lateralis, vastus medialis, rectus femoris in your legs, the hamstring, bicep, femoris, and all these different muscles, gluteus medius and maximus, and the abdominal layers of the abdominal muscles. Because if you don't know these muscles, then once again, you sound like you're a charlatan almost, So you want to sound at least sophisticated, where you're like an expert in what you're doing. And I think Vince was a stickler for that, right?
Without a doubt. I mean, he was definitely, it was all seriousness. You went to the gym, you trained, and he just basically wanted you to train. I mean, he didn't want people. I mean, back in the day, it was a little bit different. There was no cell phones,
Right.
no social media. So, but I mean, he was very strict. I mean, but with good reason. He just wanted people to, work out and do it his way.
Right.
I mean, he was a stickler. If he didn't do it his way, it was an issue.
What was the cost of a gym membership back when he was running his gym?
I mean, it varied. I mean, people paid back in the day, like $100. I mean, it depended. It depended on what year.
$100 a year?
Yeah, I mean, it varied. No, I mean, the gym started back in the 1940s and all the way, but sadly it closed in 1995. So, but it stood its ground almost 50 years.
What's there now? Did they completely remove? There's no gym there, or is there a gym?
It's gone through various transitions from all sorts of from a mobile cell phone company to a burger place. At the present time, I think it's held its ground as a burger place.
Vince must haunt that place, at night.
Yeah, I mean, it was very tough for him when he closed up the gym because, I mean, to the very end, I mean, that was his
How
passion.
old was he when he closed the gym?
He almost, I mean, he died, right before his 80th birthday in 1997. So,
right.
But he was going all the way to the end. I mean, in 1995, he still had the gym, but he closed it in November '95, and like I said, he just couldn't compete with the big gyms that were coming up.
Right.
Times were changing. The big gyms were.
Although, I think today he would be more successful because it seems like people went backwards a little. They went away from the big gyms, and a lot of people are going back to more of the personal training gyms or the hardcore gyms. Look at Brian Dobson's Metroflex. I mean, he franchised that. I'm sure Vince probably could have done something like that even,
So, but I mean, I think it's pretty impressive that he lasted almost 50 years for that. I mean, there's very few gyms that lasted except for Gold's Gym and Easton's Gym. Easton's Gym is probably, I think they take the number one spot. They're there from the 1930s.
Wow.
So, and I think Gold's, probably the number two. I haven't done the research, but my guess, Gold's is probably the longest gym to be around. I think Gold's, they opened their first gym in 1965, I think.
Yeah.
So.
Now, is it true that Joe Weider sent Arnold to go to Vince's to be evaluated when he first came to this country?
Yes, basically.
Tell us the story.
When Arnold came from Europe, Joe Weider felt that he would, he just felt Arnold needed to get a little bit more cut up. So he decided to send, Joe decided to send Arnold to Vince's. And there's an interesting story behind that as well.
What did Vince think of Arnold?
He wasn't impressed by him. I mean, Arnold came in a little bit with a chip on his shoulder a little bit and said, "I'm Arnold Schwarzenegger." And Vince's reply is something, Arnold fans might get offended, but it happened. And he just said, "You look like a fat fuck to me." So,
did he really? Oh my God. That was probably
but
Arnold lasted 30 seconds as his friend.
Yeah, but Arnold actually stuck it out, and that was the thing with Vince. It was almost like a test.
Right.
There was so many stories where a person came in and.
So did Arnold train there for a while?
For a little bit, not too long. He trained there for a little while, but he eventually, obviously, went to Gold's. But he did train there for a while. For instance, in the 1970s, I think it was 1975, Frank Zane went there when they were filming Pumping Iron at Gold's.
Right, I remember that.
I think Zane trained there for 3 months, and that whole group went back and forth, so to say.
Gotcha.
So, but Arnold, he did train there for a little while, and he actually liked some of the equipment. I mean, Vince had a 45-degree lateral bench with a cutout in it. And basically you could actually breathe. You didn't have to twist your head. You could put your head straight down and do laterals. So it was pretty
okay.
cool.
That's a good idea.
And,
Yeah, that's great.
yeah, and actually Arnold really liked that. I mean, he talks about it once in a blue moon when he does when somebody mentions Vince's gym.
That's funny.
So,
that's funny.
Yeah.
So you think that Vince was impressed with Arnold at some point? You know?
Aggressive?
No, impressed with Arnold.
No, I mean, I don't think he was that. I don't know if he was kind of keeping it inside, but I don't think he ever was overly impressed with him.
Right.
No.
Okay.
You know, even though Arnold's a legend, but I just don't think it, you know, he was that impressed with
Gotcha.
him.
Now you have this the Vince's Locker 3 is coming out. And you have it's not a GoFundMe, it's a Fund Me page though. What is that on?
Yes, it's actually it's Vince's Secret Locker. I did start a crowdfunding page to help
funny. Here we have it up here.
Yes, to help fund the Volume 3 in a hardcover.
Gotcha. Now you're looking to raise what, $8,000?
Yes, it's like the minimum just to get the book printed.
Gotcha.
In hardcover. The book is what I'm trying to do is a little bit different. It's just not the typical hardcover book. It has all sorts of effects and stuff. And I hate to say it, due to COVID, the pricing of book printing has skyrocketed.
Right.
I mean, normally I've never had this situation. I just figured I'd start the crowdfunding page. And at the same time, the crowdfunding page, it actually gives a little insight about the book. It's not just the typical book. There's lots of artwork. There's tons of stories. There's training information. There's Q&A.
Who did all the illustrations in the book?
I had like several artists from around the world.
Gotcha.
And I actually worked hand in hand with the artists. It wasn't like I just contracted artists.
Yeah.
I actually submitted my ideas, and we worked together online.
Wow.
So well, some of my artists probably hate me, but
well, obviously this is a labor of love because you're not going to get rich selling this book, but it's great. It's a great for people who really love bodybuilding and the history of bodybuilding. This is like something great to have on your bookshelf because it really does take you back to another era, and you know you got to know where you came from. I always tell people as bodybuilders, I think a lot of us don't know the history of the sport. You know, and I've been trying to continually learn, and I love every time I hear a story that I haven't heard in the past. It just gives me like another little bit of information about where we came from. It's almost like the evolution of where we came from, you know, and it's important to know where we came from and all the sacrifices guys like Vince Gironda made for no money. I mean, he was making a living, but he wasn't rich by any means. He did it because it was a labor of love.
He was actually towards the end of his career somewhat broke.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us, Karl. Where can people purchase the book if they want to get it? Or
the best thing would be to go on the crowdfunded Volume 3 to Indiegogo. You could actually pre-order the book.
Great.
There. And as far as my other books,
the
you can
Volume
go to
1 and 2.
my website directly to vincessecretlocker.com. And if anybody has any questions, I have my email at the bottom of the page. You could email me if you want to know anything about the book, what's a little more detail, what's in the book. I'll be more than happy to respond.
Well, I'm glad that you have decided to preserve this little piece of bodybuilding history because I don't think anyone else was. And so I always, whenever I see people doing stuff like this, I'm like, wow, thank God for, the passion that you have regarding this because this thing it could have been lost to history. And these books,
that was the purpose I did it.
Yeah, it's like
I
they're
didn't
like
want it to get lost.
The history books, you would read about, the wars in Europe. I mean, now this is part of bodybuilding lore, and now your books are indelibly there. And so, if people want to check them out, I think they'll really enjoy them. I have Volume 1 and 2. I'm excited to get Volume 3 for you, and when I get it, I'll show it off to people, and we'll promote it again. Once again, thanks for joining us, and best of luck with the book.
I appreciate it. It was great being on the show, and thanks again for having me on. So.
Absolutely. All right, and that's going to take us to the end of another episode of RXMuscle's History of Bodybuilding. I'm Dave Palumbo with Karl Coyne. We'll see you next time.